It's time to experiment and create this entire animation inside of After Effects frame by frame. Let's do it.
TipTut.
Part 1. Character rigging and setup. During the creation of this series, I realised that this project was much more complex and larger than I had intended. I often found myself backtracking, making mistakes, and exploring new ideas. Usually, I would cut this out of the episode to provide a concise experience, but for several reasons, this wouldn't work for this series. Therefore, rather than scrapping the episodes, I decided to leave in my mistakes, explorations, and thought processes, as I thought it might help provide a unique and helpful experience. With that in mind, let's get to it. Hello everybody and welcome back to TipTut. Today we're going to start a new journey into the world of After Effects. We're going to take a look at how to animate in the more traditional sense as opposed to the kind of motion graphic style animation that we've done before. You've seen in the intro the little sequence that we're going to be animating. If you want to download the resources for that, you can go to my website tiptut.xyz. Go to the resources page at the top, and if you scroll down, you'll see animation in After Effects. And from here, you can click and download the sketch file, keyframes, and color palette that we'll be using in this tutorial. That being said, all I've done is open up After Effects and drag those three assets in, and we're just going to jump right in and get started. So before we go too much further, I thought it would be worthwhile taking you through the process that I did to achieve this storyboard. As you can see from the first storyboard on the left there, I really roughed out what I wanted this generic animation to be. She's just shooting a basketball, nothing super impressive about that. I then went through in the second one, which is in the middle here, and tidied that up. And then in the third version, I started to add color to it. Once I decided on these kind of style frames that I wanted, I knew that I could apply that effect to the rest of the animation as well. I went through and I did all of the keyframes for the animation. This was just a case of going through and seeing how I wanted this character to move and putting in the key movements or the main poses that I wanted that character to hit. So you can see here I'm drawing the arms as she's moving the basketball around. The body doesn't move too much. Basically, anytime anything changes direction or starts moving in a different direction, you're going to need a keyframe. So this isn't going to be the finished animation. It's just the main poses. The biggest one was obviously her bouncing the basketball, but then after that, we go ahead and see the ball flying through the air, landing in the net and coming back to the player here. Just thought it was worth illustrating that what you're going to be doing isn't the first part of the process, but oftentimes you'll be handed this work by another person, and I just wanted to focus on the sort of animation in After Effects for this tutorial series. That being said, let's jump right in and get back to the show. Now, for this one, I recommend you follow my animation in After Effects.mp4 because this just has the keyframes that will be following to roughly do our entire animation. So you can see we've got the looping stuff going on here. We're going to create a new composition. I'm going to make mine 2560 by 1440 and 12 frames per second because in traditional animation, it was done at 24 frames per second, but often they'd animate on twos, which basically means every 2 frames there'd be a new picture. Sometimes they do it more so in more detailed stuff, but we won't really need it for this animation. So 12 frames per second is going to achieve that kind of hand-drawn janky style that we're going for. 30 seconds is more than enough, and I'm just going to hit OK. Let's drag in our animation in After Effects MP4 as a guide, and I'm just going to reduce the opacity of this down to about 20%. I've also got, as you can see, my palette, so I'll drag that in and I'll just pop it off to the side. And if you want to, you can drag in your storyboard reference as well, scale that down a little bit, and you can use this as a reference to turn on and off. I will say right away, if you're new to After Effects, you're probably going to have a little bit of trouble following this tutorial. I'd recommend going and watching my Intro to Motion Graphics series, which I'll link in the description, because I'm going to skip over a few of the basic things. I will try and explain what I'm doing as I go along, but I'm bound to miss a few things. So if you're brand new, I wouldn't recommend this series, but if you're willing to give it a go, crack on. There's nothing like diving head in to learn how to use software. So all I did there was just drag and drop from my project down to my timeline, and I just hit S to bring up the scale and bring that scale down a little bit. So we've got all of our reference materials here. I'm going to select all of these reference materials by clicking and dragging, and I'm just going to give them a color of red so that when I quickly glance at the timeline, I can see at a glance what is a reference material. Okay, that being said, let's turn off our storyboard and we'll jump right into this. So we're mainly going to be using shape layers to deal with this. And this first episode is going to deal with building up our background and our character as an animatable set of elements. So let's just jump right in. I'm going to grab my pen tool by clicking this pen icon at the top here. And we're going to make our fill layer one of the colors from our sketch. I'm going to grab my eyedropper and let's start off with her skin, which is this kind of orangey peachy color. And hit OK. Now, with the pen tool selected, you want to make sure that you've got no stroke. If you hold Alt and click on that stroke a few times until the red line goes through it, that'll get rid of your stroke in a quick and easy fashion. And we're going to take a look at doing her body now. Let's start with her face. So I'm just going to click and drag with the pen tool to move the points of this pen around until I get a shape that I'm happy with. You can click and drag on existing anchor points if you want to adjust them. And you could Alt click on an anchor point to adjust just one side of that anchor handle if you think that'll be useful. For example, in this circumstance here, I might want to move this entire point. I'm happy with this bottom curve, but if I hold Alt, I can then stretch out this top curve. And we're just going to follow along the character's face until we get a shape we're roughly happy with. Remembering, of course, that we can come back and tweak this at any point and connecting it up like so. If you click off of your shape, it's a good way to determine how that ultimately is going to look. It's a little bit wobbly, so I'm going to grab my pen tool, grab this shape again. I'm just going to come in and select these layers and tidy this up a little bit and smooth it out. Control clicking will remove a point, which might be useful once you've actually built your shape. In order to make it as simple as possible, you basically want the least amount of these points here as possible. So one quick point before we go too much further is there's a setting that you might want to check before you start. If you go to Edit, Preferences and General, you might want to make sure that your Preserve, Constant Vortex and Feather Point Count is turned on. You may have a better experience personally if you turn it off, depending on how you want to animate. But what this basically means is if I choose to keyframe my path here, and I'll explain what this means later, and say go through and add in a bunch of anchor points and move these around. With this checked, it will do its best to morph between those two without affecting any of the other anchor points. So for example, here, you can see all these points. If I were to add an extra point here and go to the next frame, it's added in that point for us, yeah? Just to make sure that it doesn't freak out in any unexpected ways. So that's what you need to do. If it doesn't work for you, turn it off, see which is easier for you to work with, essentially. That being said, let's crack on. I've drawn this head layer here. I'm just pressing U to collapse that down. And I'm going to select that layer, hit enter, and just call it head. I'm going to drag it below all of our other things here so that we've got our guide layer on top, okay? Now we want to add all of our facial features on separate layers if we can. So making sure we've got nothing selected down here, we're going to go to the next skin layer and draw an ear. I'm just going to hold Shift to make sure that's a nice smooth line. And that'll do for the ear. Happy with that. So we'll select this layer, hit enter, call it ear left and drag it below the head. Okay. As we're going, I'm going to start editing the anchor points of these shapes. So I'm going to select my head, choose my pan behind tool up in the top here, and just drag that down to where I think I want the anchor point for the rotation of this head to be, which is probably going to be around the chin area. For these ears, we're going to pop it like so, although I don't imagine we'll be animating them too much. Let's duplicate ear left by hitting Control D on the layer. Let's rename it ear right. And let's right click it, go to transform, flip horizontal. And that's just a nice quick way to make sure that we've got an ear that's roughly the same shape. If you want to, you can of course squash and stretch that so it's not perfectly symmetrical. Adds a little bit more realism to your drawing. Let's now go to our color palette, hit our pen tool and grab this nice dark color for the hair. And I'm just going to draw in the hair. Making sure to overshoot my shapes quite a bit because we don't know exactly how we're going to animate these. We want to make sure that we've got enough leeway to do what we want with them. Again, not worrying too much about the shapes behind, but just making sure they match up roughly. That'll do for there. We'll rename this one hair and drag it behind the head. And we'll give this one a slightly different color, maybe like a yellow, just to keep our timeline nice and neat and know what's going on. With that in mind, let's come back and grab another color. Perhaps this lighter reddish color here. Well, we can check what we did in our original by turning on this storyboard. And yes, we chose this kind of purple layer, the same as our top. So we'll just draw in ourselves a nice hair tie bun thing with the pen tool, clicking and dragging till we get the shapes that we want. And connecting up like that. Cool. Drag that to the bottom, call it hair tie. And then for this layer, I'm just going to grab an ellipse instead. Go over to my color palette. Make sure the fill is the right color. And I'm just going to draw an ellipse. Drag that underneath. Call that one bun. And then just squash and stretch this until I'm happy with the rough shape. And then grab the pan behind tool and make sure it's connected to the middle of that hair tie. Make sure the hair tie is connected to the back of the head, like so. And make sure the hair is also anchored, maybe at the ear level. Let's grab these other two and make them yellow as well. Okay. So that's the head done. Let's move on to the face. Just double check. Character's got some lines next to the ears, so we'll add those in too. For that, we need to grab our pen tool and grab our slightly darker color, and this time apply it to the stroke. And Alt-click the fill until the red line goes through it. Then we just need to choose where these lines are going to be, maybe something like that. Don't worry that these look a little bit chunky at the moment. We're going to apply a nice little effect at the very end of our animation to make it look like it was drawn with a pencil, and that will take care of that. We'll just call this one ear line left, and we'll drag it above the head, ear, and other lines. Then on the same layer, no, let's do it on a different layer. On a different layer, we're going to draw the right-hand line, like so. Okay, looks good. Let's pop that one in the right place. Ear line right. Okay, now then, let's add in these eyebrows while we've got a bit of time. We'll make sure they're the same color as the hair by selecting that from the color palette on our stroke. Just panning around the canvas here with the space bar. Grab our pen tool and draw in some quick eyebrows. I'm going to put both these eyebrows on the same layer. So I'm just going to select off and on the layer again to draw a new path on the same layer. Let's build them in the same way as we did the other one though. There we go. And we'll just call this one eyebrows. That's because we can animate those eyebrows individually despite them being on the same layer. And it means that we only have to have one anchor point for both eyebrows, which will just pop in the middle. Sounds good. So let's click off any selected layer and draw the mouth, which for now we will just use the same technique of having a single line, selecting off, back on the layer, drawing the second line till we get something we're happy with. This one, however, we don't want to be this black color. We want it to be the same color as these pink lines here. So we'll just go to our pen tool, grab our stroke color, and eyedropper that pink. Okie dokie, let's call that layer mouth. Pop that there, and now it's time to work on the eyes. Now the eyes are a little bit different because we're going to have to do some set matting on them, but that's okay. So I'm just going to alt-click the stroke until that disappears, and I'm going to come in, I'm going to grab this lightest color on our fill from the color palette. Then I'm going to trace the larger eye till I get something I'm happy with. Boom, like that. Pretty good. Then we're going to go down to our contents, twirl that down, grab the shape, hit Control C and Control V to paste a second shape outside of the first one. So collapse that shape, paste it again for shape 2, drag that over to this eye, grab our pen tool, select this top point and just bring it down. And we know they're exactly the same size, shape, etc. Apart from that one modification that we've made. And we'll grab our pan behind tool and drag that to the middle too, just in case we do anything weird with the rotation during the animation of this. We'll call this one eyes, and we'll pop it just above the mouth, but we'll give it a slightly different color, maybe a green, to help us keep track. Okay, so now it's time to draw the pupils. For that, I'm just going to grab the circle tool and double check what color I picked for them. I think it was a nice dark purple, same purple as the shorts. So we'll go over here, which I think was this purple, and we'll turn the fill color to that dark purple. And we'll draw our iris. Now I'm going to click in the center of the iris and holding Control and Shift, it allows me to draw a perfect circle that grows from the center. Deselecting that will automatically put our anchor point in the middle. Scroll down your contents, grab your first ellipse, Control C, click contents, Control V, we'll duplicate that ellipse, and we'll just move this one over until the center of this eye. Now you will notice that we've got a problem here in that the pupil expands past the eye line, so we can fix that quite easily. We rename this one Pupils, first of all, and drag it just above the eyes. Now, one thing you could do is you could grab your eyes, you could toggle switches, and turn your track matte to alpha matte pupils, and that's only going to show the pupil layers. Alternatively, you could put pupils underneath and track matte the eyes to get that purple color. You would then, however, have to duplicate the eyes layer again and put it underneath and make it visible in order to still have your eyes, and then you'd have to pin or pick whip the path of the top eyes to the bottom eyes so that they copy each other. Quite difficult, lots of stuff going on, really rubbish, don't want that. So what we are going to do is grab our pupils layer, go to our effects and presets panel. I've got a shortcut which just allows me to press Control Space to bring it up the effects panel, but it's exactly the same as me selecting this effects and presets panel here, waiting for it to load and typing in there. The reason I don't do that is because you have to wait for it to load. It's just called, what's it called? Something console, effects console by Video Copilot. Just allows you to press Control Space and I can type in the exact effect that I want, which is set matte. Hitting enter will apply that to your layer. If you've done it from over here, you can just drag and drop it onto your layer. Now what we can do is choose the matte for this layer and not have to worry about duplication. So I believe I can just say take matte from layer and then say eyes. And what that's going to do is then allow us to move our pupils around, and it's only going to mask the eye layer, which you can see is really, really useful for us. We can go back to our project panel because we don't need that for now. And zooming out, we can see that we've completely done our head. Hide the palette and the background there to see what that looks like. And don't worry, like I said, about all these crunchy lines, these crisp lines. Like you saw in the intro, they're going to be all crunched up later. But we do that at the very end to save us some A, time, and B, rendering power on our machine. So with that head finished, what I'm going to do is in time-lapse mode, I'm going to go through and fill out the rest of these shapes. If I do anything that I think needs calling attention to, I'll jump out of the time-lapse. Otherwise, it's exactly the same as what I just did for the head, apart from for the body. So I'm just going to do that in time-lapse so I don't waste your time. And I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so we've drawn the neck and the body here. Now, to create this kind of neckline, this neckline of the top, what we're going to do is draw ourselves a shape that is much larger than the area that we need. Tidy up the sections that we're happy with the shape. And I'm going to give it a color, same color as the skin. And then we're just going to use that same set matte effect as before. So Again, I'm just hitting Control Space for this shortcut, but if you don't have that plugin, you can just go to the Effects and Presets panel and wait for it to load and type in Set Matte. As you can see, it takes a little second to load, which is why I like this one, because it's immediate and will not search the whole library. It'll only type in the things that you need. Go to your Set Matte on your layer and choose the shape layer to be the body. Then it will only appear where the body appears, like so, meaning that when we drag this down below the neck, and we can call this neckline, make it brown. When we move this neckline about, it's only going to appear where the body appears. Okay, back to it. Now for the shorts here, drawing these sort of pink lines along the bottom of the shorts, these sections here, I'm just doing the same technique where we overshoot the shape by quite a lot. We'll just call this shorts left bottom. And we'll use the same thing of a set matte. But I just wanted to highlight the fact that we are oversizing this quite a lot. Don't worry about that. We're going to basically be pinning all this stuff together later on and then making sure it all stays together. But I just wanted to also illustrate the fact that there will be a point where this sort of dark undershadow comes in as well. And to do that, we're just going to bring in another layer, and this is the benefit of the set matte effect. We're going to bring in another layer, which is slightly smaller because it doesn't need to move around so much and will only appear sometimes. We'll make it the darkest purple because it's kind of the shaded underside like this. We'll pop that with the other shorts layers on top, call it shorts left under. And we will also apply a set matte of the same layer, shorts L, to only appear there. Now what that's done is made sure that this only appears on the shorts layer, but also appears on top of our pink strip, which shows that when we add the leg in a little bit, it will cut that off. And we're going to repeat that process on the other side as well. Okay, so as you can see now, I've done the entire left leg, but we've got this issue where the leg doesn't appear on what should be technically the inside of the shorts. If I bring back the storyboard here, you can see that on some frames, we're going to have a bit where the shorts rise up. And this may seem like a small detail, but it does add quite a level of realism to the animation. So all I've done here is I have a leg, which is the shape of the entire leg. On top of that, I have a sock, which is just a random shape, big enough to account for any animation. With the alpha channel set to leg L, and then a sock top, which is also set to leg L, and a shoe, which is also set to leg L as the set matte. So basically 3 layers all on top of the leg layer. To get this little section here, you can see that I've got the shorts bot, which is this kind of orangey bit here, and the shorts under, which is this inside leg bit. But obviously we need that leg to appear within there, but not on this red bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate the leg left layer and drag it above everything. So above the shorts under and the shorts bot, and make a duplicate of our leg on top of these 2 layers. We're going to rename this to leg L mask, and we're going to apply another set matte to it, which we will set to be shorts left under, which is this purple section. So now it will only appear where this shorts leg under bit appears. But you now think you're going to have to animate 2 copies of this leg. Yeah, if I ever change the shape path of this leg, I'm going to have to change the shape path of the leg above it, which is a right pain in the ass. So we can fix that by twirling down our leg L mask layer until we get to the contents of the shape. For some reason I've got 2 shapes in here, but there should only be 1. twirl down that shape, twirl down that path, and Alt-click that stopwatch. And that's going to say content of shape 1, content path. So we'll just leave that for a second. Twirl down the original leg 1 layer until you get to the same thing. I don't know why there's 2 shapes here. I think I just misclicked. Go down to the path of this one. So you've got both of these open. On this expression, so what this is basically saying is the piece of content known as shape 1, which is this, access that shape's path, which is this. Now if we grab that path's keyframe here and go over to the pick whip and we drag that pick whip to the path option of leg L and release, it will add an extra section which now says this comp's layer, leg 1, its first shape and its first path will be exactly the same as path 1 of this leg layer here. Now you don't even need to know what that means. All you need to understand now is that if I were to change the path of this leg here, I say, for example, expanding it out like so, the one underneath it will expand as well. Okay, so no matter what we do to this bottom layer now, it's going to do to the top layer. And what that means is we'll be able to edit this one. You could even shy this layer if you don't want to see it. This leg L mask one. You could turn the toggle for shy on and then hide your shy layers, and then it won't even appear in your palette. I don't really care about that, so I'm just going to keep it here. Whatever you do with this now, with this leg L layer, will change this leg L mask layer. So we're just going to make all of these the same color. Maybe let's have them be green. Oh no, that's the same as the shorts, so let's have them be peach. That'll do. We've now got our hips line and shorts left. So that's all of the shorts stuff going on there. We will grab our shorts bot and shorts underlayer as well. We'll make them a different color, orange, just so we've got a little bit going on. Now this leg mask does have to go above them, so if that's bugging you, that all the colors are out of order, like I said, just shy it. What that means is when I grab this layer and move it about, look, you can see that it only shows that leg layer on there. Now, obviously that's only going to work to the extent that the mask is there, but luckily we're only going to be doing this. So as you can see, it'll be like the legs flapping about. Do note that obviously if you start to drag this down, it's going to remove the sock as well. So you just need to make sure that your shape path on this layer is small enough that it doesn't touch the sock. Luckily for this animation, that shouldn't really be a concern. If it is, you can just come in and tweak that path. Right, so now that I've done that with that leg, I'm just going to finish off the arm, and then I'll copy it all across to the other side of the body as well. So there is the background. I've dragged them all to the bottom. I'm just going to select those 4 layers for now and hit recompose. And we're going to call this scene 1, shot 1, background, and just hit OK. That's just going to help us collapse down into one thing so that we can hide this background if we need to and animate just on the character without having to reselect everything. Okay, last step then. Let's just work with this basketball here. For this, I'm going to grab myself an ellipse tool and I'm going to select my basketball color, which I believe is 1 darker than the skin. I'll just check that against here. Yeah, 1 darker than the skin, and then the lines are the same color as her top. So we'll just do that. I'm going to grab myself my ellipse tool, no layers selected. I'm going to click and drag whilst holding Control and Shift, and that's going to create myself a perfect circle. First thing I'm going to do is rotate this a little bit by pressing R to spin it down so that the anchor point adjustment points, these 4 dots here, are in line with the way I want the ball to move. The reason I'm going to do that is so that I can squash and stretch in the right direction a bit easier, like so. And we're just going to rename this one basketball. And we'll drag that below both of her arm layers, which should be about arm right there. But it's going to be obviously above all of her hips and legs and stuff like that. So what we're going to do then is we're going to grab our pen tool, get rid of our fill, come over here and grab our darker color for the stroke, and leaving it on the same thickness as all the other lines in the composition. We're just going to come through and we're going to try and sort of draw this rough shape here, but we're going to extend it further than it would actually go. So for example, trying to make this as smooth looking as possible. We're going to draw the lines on the basketball. Now I'm going to connect these bottom ones to the one down here, because I have a feeling that's how it would go. Obviously, you could look at a basketball as a resource. I'm just going to get this roughly correct, and then I'm going to come in and tweak these points to make it a bit smoother. Not necessarily following, I think that's a good point there to have the anchor point actually. And if we control this one a bit more, so then we've got points at the largest points and points at the thinnest points as well. Said the word points too much there. Points at the points at the points at the other points. Okay, so we're just tweaking these out to make a nice smooth shape. Not necessarily following this particular shot, because obviously the basketball is going to be moving about and rotating and stuff between shots anyway. So that'll do. On the same layer, we're then just going to draw a big arc going through the middle this way. And on the same layer, a big arc going through the middle this way. Looks good. Now we've overshot that quite a bit so that I can rotate this at will, and it still covers all of the basketball's sort of mass. And also so that we can reposition it at will to an extent, and it will still cover the entire basketball's mass. Again, we're not going for hyper-realism here, so that's fine. We can just call this one, oh God, what did I just do then? I just turned the opacity off, I think. Make sure you hit enter before you rename a layer. We'll call this one basketball lines. We'll drag it above the basketball, and we will add a set mat to the basketball layer. Bam, we're just going to hide all of our extra lines for us. And as far as setup goes, that is it. So for now, what I'm going to do is just turn off this other layer here so it's a bit less distracting. And I'm just going to turn on the transparency of this background here so I can see my character in a bit more of a usable light. So that is setting up our character's structure. However, we now need to pin everything together so that when we animate her, we can actually reduce the amount of keyframes that we need to use, and we can move this person as a whole. Now, this is why it was super important to make sure that we'd colored and labeled our layers correctly, because it's going to make this point a little bit easier to work with. I'm just going to make this basketball maybe red, just because it's going to stick out in the layer palette a bit more there. And we'll make all these layers sandstone so that they're a bit less distracting in our layers palette. Let's change that to fit. Someone is releasing fireworks outside, so if you hear any strange popping, that's what that suddenly is. And we're going to look at pinning our character. So let's select everything we've got. And as you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on here. What we're going to need to do is make sure, for example, that her body is attached to her hips in a realistic way. The arms attached to the body at the shoulder joint, so that when we rotate them, they rotate via that joint and that sort of thing. This is a bit of a long process, but I'm not going to speed through this one because it's quite important as to how, oops, excuse me, she's very fat now, as to how you actually connect all of this together. So let's start off with the head. Let's start at the top. So we've got our pupils. The pupils, understandably, would need to be connected to the eye, but I'm also going to grab my pan behind tool and I'm just going to drag the anchor point for these to the middle. What that means is when I rotate or scale around these, they'll move around this anchor point so we can make it look a bit dopey if we wanted to. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my pupils layer, grab my pick whip, which you should be able to see on both toggles down here, so it doesn't matter which one you're on. And I'm going to pick whip this to the eyes layer. What that means is when I move the eyes layer, it's going to move the pupils with it. That's the process that we're going to do for every single layer. Choose where we want the anchor point to be. Choose where we want it to be connected to. So for example, the pupils connect to the eyes. The eyes, however, are going to have to connect to the head so that when I move the head, the eyes and stuff move with it. So let's just go through one by one and do that. The mouth, I'm happy with this anchor point. We're going to connect that to the head. Eyebrows, same thing. Head, I've lost it. I've lost head. There it is. The ears lines, I'm going to connect to the ears. So ear line right is going to be connected to ear right, and ear line left is going to be connected to ear left. Both of the ears, however, are going to be connected to the head. We now need to connect the hair to the head as well. But what I'm going to do is drag our anchor point down a little bit so it's in line with the top of our ears. Attach that to the head. Attach the hair tie to the hair. And attach the bun to the hair tie. Now, the reason we've done it that way, just check where our anchor points are for this one. That's correct, but the bun is also correct. The reason we've done it that way is so that I can do something like this. If I were to rotate the head a little bit, that rotates everything. But say I want to get a bit of bounciness in the hair, I can then rotate the hair just a touch more. Rotate the hair tie just a little bit, and it'll only affect the hair tie and the bun. Yeah, and then I could rotate or squish the bun a little bit more as well, so that we can animate all of these elements independently and we can add like a bit more flick to the motion. So that's why we're connecting this all incrementally and not just connecting all of it directly to the head. Once that is all connected, we can go to our neck, which we are going to move the anchor point down to where we think it would logically connect to the body. And we're going to connect our head to the neck. The neck is then going to be connected to the body, and so is the neckline, because that's going to move with the body, not with the neck, even though it's called neckline. And for the neckline as well, we're just going to make it shift up a little bit so that if we do choose to rotate or scale this, it's going to move in a bit more of a believable way. Okay, great. So the body is probably where I'm going to be moving all of this from, but we will be connecting this whole thing to a null, which I'll connect to the middle of her feet, but we'll get to that in a minute. The body I'm going to leave alone for now. However, I will just shift its anchor point down to the hips so that when we rotate this, it rotates from the correct position. Okay. Arm left lines are obviously going to be connected to arm left, and arm left is obviously going to be connected to the body. The lines, I'm not too bothered about where the anchor point is because they won't be animated individually with the arms. They'll just be animated by redrawing them each frame. But the arm left is very important that we drag the anchor point over to the shoulder joint. Again, looks pretty good. If you want to test things, you can just hit R to bring up rotation and give it a little test. Arm right lines connected to arm right, and arm right connected to body, and drag the anchor point here. Now, this is a bit tedious, but it's very important you do this before you start any animation, because if you move the anchor point after you started animating, then it's going to fuck up your entire animation. Basketball lines are going to be connected to basketball. Basketball, I'm not probably going to pin to anything. If I do, I'd pin it to the hands for now, but I may choose to undo that later. So I'm going to pin it to arm right for now because it's touching that hand. Obviously, it's going to hit the floor and it's going to hit this, and it may be better just to animate that individually. So we may come back to that. Hips lines, we will attach to the hips. And the hips themselves, we will shift the anchor point up to roughly the same place where the body's anchor point was. And we will attach the body actually to the hips. That makes more sense to me. Shorts under R. Shorts bot R. And yeah, all of it. Shoe, sock right, and leg right are all going to be pick whipped to shorts right. Shorts right is going to have its anchor point adjusted to up where it would be attached to the hips. Up here. Sorry, I lagged out a bit there and it kind of shimmied all the way over. Meaning that when I rotate this, you should rotate that entire leg. Then we're going to come down to our foot here and we're going to grab shoe right. And we'll just in case, we'll just position all these anchor points correctly. So we have leg right, we've got sock right. Don't picture this animating, but oh well. Sock top right, we will just pick whip to sock right. And again, that way, if I do animate the sock's top will animate with it too. It seems like a rather thick sock top. I'm gonna squish that a bit, I think. And rotate it a little bit. That looks a bit better. Sock top right is attached to sock right. And sock right is there, fine. Shorts right are attached to the hip. And then when I rotate the hip, woo, the whole thing rotates. But then leg right's anchor point will move to here. And then, yes, I did that wrong. Sock right and sock top right should be anchored, or even just sock right at this point, because sock top right is linked to sock right. Sock right should be linked to leg right. Yes, because we may choose to individually animate this guy, which means that shoe right should also be attached to leg right. Yes, correct. There we go. Now the whole thing spins and animates properly. Okay, good. This is why I did this on camera, so you can see the kind of the working out process of it all. Okay, that's all of them. You can quickly see at a glance what isn't connected. So the hips aren't connected to anything. That's fine, but everything else is connected. Let's carry on then. So leg left mask. I didn't do the leg right mask. That was silly of me. Let's quickly do that now. Leg right mask, we will pop to the top. We'll twirl it down. Go to the path. We'll do the same for leg right here. Contents, shape 1. Path 1, we'll alt-click the top one and pick whip it to this path. Close it off. That's still pinned to shorts right as this leg is, so I can effectively ignore this one now. Then we can set the shorts under. How did I do it on the left one? The shorts under left was fine. The leg mask is set matted to shorts under. So we'll take the leg right mask and we'll set mat that to shorts under right. Yes, good. Now, if we were to move shorts under right up, yes, we've got the bits that we want. Okay, good. So that's why that sock looked a bit weird at the moment. So what we'll do is we'll squish this boy down for now and just make him sit comfortably in that gap. And because everything's pinned together, he shouldn't appear until we choose to animate him. Like so. All right, sweet. He's connected to shorts under R is connected to shorts R, which is correct. If we rotate leg R, that works fine, apart from whatever that little section is there. What section is that? That is leg mask R. Connected to the wrong one. Leg mask R connected to leg R. Obviously. Much better. Okay. Obviously, it fucks up if you go all the way over there, but that's fine. Unless we can fix that by linking shorts under R. Instead of linking it to shorts R, link it to leg R. And then we can rotate this whole thing. And then, yeah, that's good. Because if you were to rotate that, it might affect the shorts a little bit. We may have to play around that later on, but we'll get it working. Trust me. Okay, good. Collapse those down. Move on to the next leg. So all we need to do is just duplicate what we've done here. So this is connected to leg R, which means this should be connected to leg left. Shorts under L and shorts bot L should be connected to separate things. Shorts under R is leg R here, so we'll do that here. Leg left. Shorts bot is connected to shorts R, so we'll do that shorts L. Bam. The shoes, the socks, and the other socks, which is the shoes, the socks, and the other socks are all connected to leg R, apart from the socks, which is connected to the sock. That's fine. So shorts left. Where's shorts left? It's way down at the bottom. But this shorts left isn't way down at the bottom. Works though, so we'll leave it. The shoe should be connected to the leg. The sock top should be connected to the sock, and the sock should be connected to the leg. We'll take our leg. We'll pan behind that up to the knee. Like so. Take our sock. We'll just move that just in case we choose to animate it. That's fine. We'll move that just in case we choose to animate it. That's fine. Leg L is then connected to shorts L. Bing. And shorts L is connected to hips at the correct anchor point, which will be about there. And then if we spin this around, the whole leg should move. Woo! All right, looking good. Blah, 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 blah. Character 1, shot 1, rigged. And this is honestly half of the animation, this shot. So we're good to go, basically. How long have I been prattling on? An hour. But the first half of that's going to be cut way down. Even so, I think that is more than enough for this first episode. The second episode, what we're going to do is we're going to get into actually animating this first shot here. And then each episode after that, we'll probably be doing a couple of shots because this is the most complicated one. The bouncing. That shot's quite simple, so we'll probably be frame by frame. That shot's very simple. This one's going to be cool with the little animating the net, that sort of thing. That's the same shot. Don't worry about it. And then back to this main character again. So yeah, we'll probably take it shot by shot. We'll probably do this one as its own episode. We'll combine these shots here because they're the same. And then this last one will be its own episode as well. So thanks for sticking with me whilst I rambled through all of this. I really do appreciate it. This is going to be really fun, I think, and we're going to have a good time with it. So make sure you join me next time. Subscribe, ring the bell, comment, all that stuff that I have to say. Otherwise, YouTube doesn't promote my videos. And I'll see you all next time on another episode of TipTut. See you then.
Remember to subscribe for more tips, tricks, and tutorials. Thanks for watching.